Students, welcome to the session. Hope you all are fine. Today, you will learn the poem Macavity, the Mystery Cat from the Honeydew text. The topics for discussion are poet's introduction, analysis of the poem, that is the explanation of the poem, summary of the poem, and something new for you, that is literary devices. Let me introduce you to the poet. The poet is Thomas Stearns Eliot. He was born on September 26, 1888 at St. Louis, Missouri, US. He died on Jan 4, 1965 in London, that is England. An American English poet, playwright, literary critic and editor, a leader of the modernist movement in poetry in such works as The Waste Land and Four Quartets. Eliot exercised a strong influence on Anglo-American culture from 1920s until late in the century. His experiments in diction style, versification, revitalized English poetry and in a series of critical essays. He shattered old orthodoxies and erected new ones. The publication of Four Quartets led to his recognition as the greatest living English poet and man of letters, and in 1948 he was awarded both the Order of Merit and the Nobel Prize for Literature. So this was about our poet. Now let us understand the poetry. So let us start with the poem. Macavity is a mystery cat. He's called the hidden paw, for he is the master criminal who can defy the law. He is the bafflement of Scotland Yard, the flying squad's despair. For when they reach the scene of crime, Macavity is not there. So here the poet tells us that Macavity is a mysterious cat. His mystery has given him another name. So what is that? Here the poet says that the cat has got another name, and that is hidden paw. He is an expert criminal who can disobey the law with his impunity. His actions puzzle the police of Scotland Yard. The flying squad has in vain tried to chase him. By the time they reach the scene of crime, Macavity disappears. This is what the poet is telling in the first para. Let us check the second para. Macavity, there's no one like Macavity. He's broken every human law. He breaks the law of gravity. His powers of levitation would make a fakir stare, and when you reach the scene of crime, Macavity is not there. You may seek him in the basement, you may look up in the air, but I tell you once and once again, Macavity is not there. So here the poet is trying to tell us that there is no one like Macavity. He has broken all man-made laws, and he has broken even the law of gravity. Fakirs have mysterious powers. So who are fakirs, children? These are the sages or people who can do some magic. So here the poet says that his floating in the air without support would astonish even a fakir. Above all, when you reach the scene of crime, Macavity is nowhere to be seen. Now let us check the third para. You may seek him in the basement. You may look up in the air. But I tell you once and once again, Macavity is not there. Macavity is a ginger cat. He is very tall and thin. You would know him if you saw him, for his eyes are sunken in. So here the poet is trying to tell us that if we try to find Macavity in the basement or in the air, it's all in vain. Thus, one who looks for him finds him nowhere, under or over the earth. Macavity is ginger colored cat. So he says the cat is ginger colored. You can see here in the picture. So many pictures for you in the different angles what Macavity is doing. He is tall and thin. If you meet him, you will easily recognize him because of his deep set eyes. Let us check the next para now. Here also the poet is trying to tell us that he sways his head from side to side with movements like a snake. And when you think he is half asleep, he is always wide awake. Can you see here in the last picture, children? Here the cat is acting like it is sleeping, but one eye is he's awake. That is, he's trying to act like he's sleeping. Now let us check on further. His coat is dusty from neglect. His whiskers are uncombed. He sways his head from side to side with movements like a snake. And when you think he's half asleep, he's always wide awake. And I told you that Macavity's forehead is wrinkled. From that, he appears that he's lost in deep thinking all the time. His head sits high on his body like the dome on a building, and his body is not well looked after. So the skin is dusty and his whiskers are uncombed. He moves his head from side to side like a snake, and he's always alert. When you think he's dozing, he's wide awake. Macavity, there's no one like Macavity, for he is a fiend in a feline shape, a monster of depravity. You may meet him in a by street, you may see him in the square, but when crime's discovered, then Macavity is not there. So here the poet says that Macavity is a special creature. There is no parallel to him. He is a devil in the body of a cat. He is morally corrupt like a monster, and he is not an ordinary cat. You may find him anywhere on your way. He may be there in a by lane or in a square. However, when his crime is discovered and people look for him, he is not to be found. Children, that was the discussion and explanation about the poem. Macavity the mystery cat, as I told you, is also called the hidden paw. Is a fictional character and the main character in this poetry book written by T.S. Eliot, Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats. Here, it also appears in Andrew Webber 1981 musical Cats, which is based on Eliot's book. So in this poem today we have understood why Macavity is called a mystery cat. So Macavity is called the Napoleon crime in the Macavity the mystery cat because he is the mastermind behind all the crimes but never actually does the crime. Macavity is very swift in his work and he removes all the proofs of his crime so amazingly that no one is able to make out the person behind the crime. And what else we have understood about this poem? What is the poem Macavity Mystery Cat about? We have understood that. Is Macavity real? You may ask me this question, as I have already told that it is a fictional character. Now let us understand the summary of this poem. Here in this poem, the poet is sure that there has been no creature like Macavity. Macavity has broken not only human laws but even the laws of nature. He floats in the air without any support. I showed you one picture of that. The fakirs are supposed to have some magical powers, but even they stare upon Macavity. Yet the wonder of wonders is that when one rushes to the scene of crime, Macavity is not found. Those who look after him find him neither in the basement, under the earth, nor in the air. So, what is Macavity's appearance? The poet says Macavity is a very special cat. He is very tall and thin, and it's very easy to recognize him. His eyes are deep set in his face, and his brow has deep wrinkles as if he is lost in deep thoughts. Due to constant neglect, his skin is full of dust. You will find him swaying his head from side to side just like a snake. He is an expert to cheat. When you feel he is asleep, he is only dozing. In fact, Macavity is always alert. Macavity is a unique character. The poet says he is an evil incarnate. An ordinary cat, you can find him anywhere when you're just moving by a street or in a square. However, when you want to punish him for the crime, he is nowhere. So this is the summary of the poem. So children, today I told you our topic is also literary device. Now what is this literary device? Whether you are a writer, reader, a student or all of the above, it's important to know how literary devices work. For writers, strong device usage can elevate prose from meager to magnificent. For readers, they can provide a greater understanding of the text. And for students, knowing a few literary devices might just be the key to score better. But first, some of you may be wondering, what is literary device? Anyway, those who are new to the concept, let's understand the definition of literary devices and how they are typically used in writing. Literary devices are techniques that writers use to express their ideas and enhance their writing. Literary devices highlight important concepts in text, strengthen the narrative, and help the readers connect to the characters and themes. These devices serve a wide range of purposes in literature. Some might work on an intellectual level, while others have more emotional effect. They may also work to improve the flow and pacing of your writing. No matter what, if you are looking to inject something special into your prose, literary devices are a great place to start. Of course, for the readers, literary devices can be difficult to identify, but here's a good rule of thumb. If you are reading a book and you find the author using language or narrative structure in an unusual way, there's probably a literary device at work. Indeed, some devices show up so frequently you may not even register them as you are reading. So here in the picture, I'm showing you some literary devices, children. In this few you have already started learning in your lower class, maybe first standard or second standard. Simile. Can you see the simile here? You have already learned this simile in your lower class. And here we have got metaphor, alliteration, onomatopoeia and hyperbole. So here, what is that simile, children? Let us understand with few examples. Can you see here what is anaphora? So here I have given with examples. In the next slide I am showing you with examples, but you can just have a look here with the definition of what is anaphora, what is a simile, what is a metaphor and what is personification. In the last slide you can see what are the literary devices in the poem today which we have read. So what is a metaphor? Metaphor suggests that two different things are of the same thing. See, look at the example there, children. Life is a curly slide full of twists and turns. So that is metaphor. So comparing two things but using is. So what is simile? A simile is using like or as to compare two things with each other. Here what is that? You have learned this as I told in your first or second standard, but maybe you have forgotten. And in our last class, do you remember that I taught you about idioms? So what is this simile? That simile is in your lower class you might have learnt, like as brave as lion. See here the lion is compared with its braveness. So you have learned that in your lower class. So here one example for simile, the ball streaked across the field like a meteor. So here it is an example of simile. Just look at the example of alliteration and its definition, children. Alliteration is repetition of a sound in a sentence or series of sentences. Look at the example here, children. Samantha soared down the street on her sleek skateboard. So it is a repetition of sound in a sentence. And next you can see here hyperbole. That is an exaggeration. So as we read this poem about Macavity, have you seen how much the poet has exaggerated and told us so many things about Macavity? And it's that also I told you that it is an imaginary cat. It is in real we have not seen any cat like this, but the poet has exaggerated so many things about this cat. The extra point kick missed by a mile. That is the example there. You can see the next example, last one which I am showing you here is onomatopoeia. And onomatopoeia is describing the sound of something. It's a word that sounds like a noise or action. Here the example is the jet zoomed across the sky. So you think about another example for us to discuss in our live class now. So some sound which we are using as a word itself. So you need to tell me now. Let us look at the other examples here, which I am showing you here in this slide. You can see here in the last class I have explained you about idiom. Here once again I am explaining you about idioms, and I have given the definition here. Idiom is a word formed by using more than one word together and rarely the connotation of a single word to express a certain concept, a certain emotion or situation. Blasting fire. Here this is the example given. Idioms. I told you that we will discuss about idioms in our live class, and we have discussed about idioms in our live class. So that is also a literary device, children. So here you can see few more examples. Here I am showing you two pictures. Here you can see all the examples. There are many figures of speech, children, but we will just discuss the important ones which I am showing you here. So here in this poem, that is Macavity the Mystery Cat, the poet has used personification, anaphora, alliteration and symbolism. So what is that symbolism? The poet uses various symbols in the poem. His appearance, his villainous character, footprints, his name, footprints, as he has given his name as hidden paw. See why I am telling in this poem they have used personification. That is because the human characteristics are given to animals or non-living things. So here the poet says that this Macavity can fly in the air. So here he says that Macavity is personified as he does all the things like humans. And then the repetition of the phrase in the poem. What is repeated here in the poem? You can see that Macavity, Macavity. This word is repeated again and again. It is giving and creating a poetic effect. Macavity is not there. So then alliteration also is there. It is the repetition of consonant sound I told you. So Macavity's mystery cat. Its head is highly doomed. It moves from side to side. So these as I am showing you here in the slide, all these are the literary devices which are used in this poem, Macavity the Mystery Cat. So thank you for listening, children. Now in the live session, we will discuss and clarify whatever doubts you have regarding your literary devices and the poem. Thank you, children.